Good morning. It's Friday now, the 3rd of April. And for, I don't know, the last week at least, we've been going through Genesis, the first chapter, the second chapter, and the second creation story comes up in the second chapter, and we've had the creation of Adam and now the one we know is Eve. So both are there, and I think I'm just going to sort of push through. There's a long part to the story that I think most of us know, but I want you to hear the words, and I may think about it just a little bit. So it gets us into chapter 3, and we now know the garden is there. The animals have been named, the birds, all of that. Adam and Eve are together. It's good. Things are great in the garden, and we start with chapter 3 and here. Now, the serpent was more crafty than any other animal that the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Did God say you shall not eat from any tree in the garden?" And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it, or you shall die." The serpent said to the woman, "You will not die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. And then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. They heard the sound of the Lord walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." And God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" And the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit from the tree, and I ate." And the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" And the woman said, "The serpent tricked me, and I ate." And the Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you among all animals and among all wild creatures. Upon your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. She will strike your head, and you will strike his heel." To the woman he said, "I will greatly increase your pangs in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." And to the man he said, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree about which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. You are dust, and to dust you shall return." The man named his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all living. And the Lord God made garments of skins for the man and for his wife, and clothed them. And then the Lord God said, "See, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, and how he might reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. He drove out the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he placed the cherubim and a sword flaming and turning to guard the way to the tree of life. Wow. So that's got a whole, I don't know, Game of Thrones feeling to it, doesn't it? Flaming swords and guarding this and that. It also resonates with me today when Adam is confronted. He goes, "Oh, it wasn't my fault. It was her." And when Eve is confronted, "Well, it wasn't my fault. I was tricked." And by the way, those things are actually kind of true. When you think of the naivete in the garden, it's different than the naivete of people we hear these days in media. Eve had never been lied to before. She didn't understand that the serpent would try to deceive her. Why would anybody wish ill for her? No one had ever done that before. I mean, if you think of a child, we have to teach children not to trust strangers, right? We have to teach them to be careful because they assume that everybody is on their side. So it's not peculiar that Eve was tricked. She's kind of right. And Adam, similarly, he's just going along with her, and that's fine too. But you notice that we've put a lot of modern convention in on this. And the reason you know that is because in the text, we keep referring to Adam and Eve as husband and wife. So who married them, do you think? Was there a ceremony? Was there a specific commitment to be together? Especially when they were the only humans available at that time in the garden. They're it. Yet we impose this modern understanding, and when I say modern, I mean modern from 6,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. I mean modern today. Well, of course, they are together and they are going to have children. They're married, but we don't really know that. We've imposed that. And so we've imposed some other things on the story too, I suspect, like the understanding of the pain of childbirth and the need for us to till the soil. This may be a way, again, that is, as human beings, we look not to explain how the world came to be or how it came that we would have to be farmers and it would be difficult. But this story helps us understand that life is difficult, but that's the way it is. We're not going to avoid it. There is no way that the pain of childbirth is going to be removed. And I think we can even go further. It's not just the physical pain of childbirth, but the fact is when we have children, when we have those kind of relationships, there is always going to be some pain involved. Always. And that's okay. It's not something we can avoid. And the truth is, if we're going to live with the land and on the land, we're going to have to work. We don't lie back on a couch and wait for fruit trees to drop fruit in our mouths. It's never going to be that way. So in fact, the harder we try to take away all of the pain of life, the harder we try to take away all of the work, the further we get, actually, perhaps, from our humanity. Could the story be suggesting that? Sometimes I think it is saying that very thing. This is the way things are, and we say God has made it so. We say that so that we realize that we're not going to put an end to it. Deep family relationships, parent-child relationships will always have pain. Some of that, yes, is physical, but some of it is emotional. There is emotional work, there is emotional pain to love somebody and to help them mature and to have them grow away from you. I think many of us understand what that means. There is work to be done, and the more we try to make our life work-free, that is to say, have other people do all the work for us, the further we get from our humanity. And I'll let you think about that and what that might mean in 2020. But the one thing I'd like to point out right now, we assume in many ways that Adam and Eve have been punished. And I guess in a sense they have. They can no longer live in the garden because they have now this knowledge of good and evil. They are now moral agents themselves. They get to decide. But I'm not sure that it's a punishment. I think it may be, in fact, something of a graduation. That is to say, when we become moral agents, when we decide what is right and wrong, what is good and evil, when we make those decisions, we can no longer live in a garden where we're not vulnerable. Now we are vulnerable. We recognize we're naked because we are making decisions, and sometimes we make the wrong ones. That's why we need to make them in community so that together we have a better chance of making the right choices. Just left to my own devices, I will make a whole bunch of decisions about what's right and what's wrong, and I'll be right with many of them. I'll be correct, but I'm going to be incorrect sometimes because I don't have all of the perspective. But in community, which means I'm not living in an easy garden. I actually have to work this through, and it's going to be painful at times. But again, I'm not sure this is a punishment as much as it is a graduation from the garden, because the most important thing to me is that God doesn't kick them out of the garden and then stay in the garden. God goes with them out of the garden and toils with them and hurts with them. And that's so important to me as I struggle, as I hurt, as I toil, to recognize none of this is punishment as much as it's the way it is. If I want to have moral agency, if I want to make decisions for myself, if I want to live in community. And in fact, as I do these things, I should recognize that God has come with me into life, into my toil, into my struggle. At least that's where my mind goes today as we wrap up that second story. We'll see where we go next. We're going into Holy Week, so we're going to do some work on that certainly next week. But, well, I'll let you know when we get there. But for now, I'm really, really grateful that you have come this far with me. I really do enjoy the time that we spend together, and I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Take care. God bless.